my folks up and running as I talk and do things at once. So Marlon and I were just talking before we started, and I don't know if other people have this issue, but I go off on a lot of side quests throughout the day. That's the only way I can call it. Like I'll have a primary quest and then something will come up and I'll be like, oh, I can just, this is going to take me a few minutes. I can accomplish this thing real quick, but it's not real quick. It's a side quest and it turns into 30 minutes, half an hour, phone calls. I saw online that there's a screaming club. I don't know if you've seen this.
I may be in it and didn't know.
So in Chicago, these
I
people
might be in that club.
Okay, but you know what I realized? This is going to sound totally crazy. I am not a good. I don't have a good scream. Because I don't really use it like like danger scream, like you're in a dangerous situation. And I realized like if I was in a dangerous situation, well, my mother always told me if you're in a bad situation, never scream for help. Do you know what you're supposed to scream, Marlon? Is this something only women are told?
It must be because my folks said run.
Okay, run, yes, but if you have to,
I don't know.
Do you know what you're supposed to scream?
Let's see. I have no idea.
Does anybody in the chat know? Because I see we have like 41. Fire, Demetrius. That's right. Oh. You're supposed to scream fire. You never scream help because people will not help because they don't know what it is and they don't know if somebody's kidding and also
they don't want to get involved. Okay.
But if you scream fire, people come out of the house, they come out of the thing, they come to see, because their safety's on the line with a fire. So you're supposed to scream fire. Yeah.
Doesn't that just speak to how selfish we are? It's like if you're screaming for help, well, I don't know. I don't want to get involved. Fire? Where?
Fire.
Where?
You gotta scream fire. And so anyway, see, I did it. I was on a quest and went on a side quest about fire. It's terrible. Okay. So I'll have a main storyline and then 18 stories start branching off. Like, what is it?
I really am not in a position to comment about this because, all I have to do is show you how many hundred unfinished essays or whatever you want to call them are in my draft folder. Just, it does give me like a wealth of things to just sort of, something will happen and I'll go, didn't I write something didn't I start something about that a month ago?
Well, that's good.
I'll jump in and, it gives me at least kind of a head start,
So I think, the way I think about it, because I've been having like some struggling with finishing my proposal and writing and access myself. And I think about it like, some things are happening off stage. That's what I told somebody. Like in my brain, there's an off stage somewhere and things are happening off stage. And then every once in a while they show back up. Like you said, like, oh, don't I have this writing or, but I think off stage, something is happening. Like something is working off. Maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel better, but I'm just trying to justify the fact that sometimes there are these big off stage diversions. And then we're saying earlier, when you are a solo practitioner, some of it is just work. Like I have to call a company or a vendor and I think it's going to be a few minutes and it turns into a half an hour. Or I think I'm just going to see why is my camera so fuzzy all the time? Oh, download this, do this, it's 45 minutes. Like everything is a side quest outside of my normal quest.
I get up in the morning and I have a plan. And you know what? An hour later, I'm still sitting there thinking about it. and what happens is I'll start something, but I always have financial news playing, just like I used to do when I was trading. The volume's down, and if I see, like on Bloomberg, it'll light up in red, if there's some breaking news, and it's usually not the cable news kind of breaking news, right? And then that's what'll get me. I'll be like, oh, wait a minute. So Russia is doing X, and then I just and so I will have simultaneously 2 or 3 different trains of thought going.
Yeah.
And it's a toss up as to which one of them gets finished first.
It's crazy how that is. You talk about listening to Bloomberg, because for years I've had television news on. I had a news station. I spent a long time as in literally in news,
Yeah,
and so it's almost like soothing, and it's like, but Donald Trump has stressed me out so bad
I
that
can't do it. I
he has
can't do it.
actually almost broken me of that. Like, because news was just like air to me, right? In the newsroom, there are like multiple television uh, monitors because you're watching all the other stations in your market, and then
Right.
you have national news on. So in a newsroom, there is news, right? And then you are creating news. So my brain kind of still works that way. Like, I love a lot of constant input, but he has stressed me out so bad that he
My
has
thing
almost broken.
is, he's just gotten to the point that when they start, sort of teasing that they're getting ready to play some of his,
Oh,
I'm
Jesus.
gone. I'm
It is,
sorry.
it's like you go like a physical flinch because it's
Yeah,
so
you
terrible.
know it's going to be equal parts of not true and just batshit crazy. You just don't know what this guy's going to say, and he'll say stuff that is just so far. The other day, I heard him say something about, I can't even remember what the topic was, and he said it was something like 30 million, and it was 2 million.
Yeah.
That he's got something wrong with this guy. I mean,
Well,
because
you know,
politicians lie, but they usually sort of shade it in something almost
oh,
true.
yeah, he's never done that. To be fair, he's done that his whole life, right? Like, even with The Apprentice and all that. That's just who he is. But I'm not going to give him any more airtime right now because he stresses me out when I'm trying to look at the news. I actually want to go back to the conversation about like what it means to live in your head and run around in there in your house coat trying to figure out what's going on. Today's newsletter I wrote was about what does it mean to be a Black creative? What does it mean to be a creative as a Black person with the overlay of Black excellence and all of these requirements that don't in other words, you can have somebody at work who's a genius in one thing but is terrible with grammar. I don't know,
I
whatever.
have worked around those
and,
people.
and people make accommodations for that, but that Black people generally cannot do that. Like, there is a lot of requests that you fire on all cylinders, and that we kind of reinforce that with this notion of Black excellence, which I think is contraindicated for Black humanity, right? Because to be human is to have faults, and you don't hear of like, you hear of Ernest Hemingway, or you hear these different writers, and what triggered me
Hmm.
was Anthony Bourdain. So Anthony Bourdain is
Oh,
very triggering for me because I was never a huge fan of his. There's just something about his style I personally didn't like. But after he passed away, CNN did this documentary. It's called Roadrunner. And I'm watching this documentary and I'm hearing the crew. They liked him. Don't get me wrong. The crew seemed to like him, but they talked about what an asshole he could be and how he would be late and how he would get impetuous about something and stop the filming. Or, near the end with this young girlfriend he had, she came on as a producer, came all kind of problem. And I just sat there with my mouth agape. I'm like, if a Black woman, was on that show
mm-mm.
and showed up late twice, all those people in that crew would have went to CNN management, and I wouldn't have had a job to end up having a documentary about me because the constraints. Now, here's the thing: bad behavior is bad behavior. But also, it is true that sometimes when people are creative and their brains are moving in a certain way, they forget things. They can be that way, but that's not everybody. I can't do that.
Mhm.
And so I was thinking, like, how does that constrain Black creativity when the boundaries are so tight around you? Do you know?
Well,
Is that?
you just think about Trump. I mean,
I told you I was done with
if
him.
well, no, I'm just saying, I'm sorry. It's just a case study though in what you're talking about. I mean, think about it.
Yeah,
I hear him referred to as mercurial,
yeah.
and I've all these different descriptions. This man's crazy. If he
That's
was some
crazy.
black guy walking around saying half the stuff he said. How about
Uh,
this weekend? I heard that he put like, I don't know, 40 or 50 AI generated memes on his what do you call it, on his social media.
Yeah, all night and day,
If
fooling around.
I was doing stuff like that, I promise you, my brother down in Arkansas would be like, Marlon, he'd be texting me, Marlon, what's going on? Right?
Well, more specifically, your job. If your job was the
Oh,
president,
forget that.
a bit longer, right?
It would be over.
And I know this from working in television news that when I would go out with a crew, especially sometimes I mean, I never had that. I usually my crews were good, but there are people who had crews because television used to be different. Like right now in TV, a lot of people, even at some higher markets, you have to shoot your own stuff. Like they have you out there, man, doing 3 jobs for 1 paycheck. But it used to be you would get camera guys, and camera guys were kind of rough and tumble guys, and they weren't like some of them were good aesthetically, and some of them it was a job and it was physically hard, and not all of them were, let's say, shall we say, racially enlightened. So you might be out with people who were quite difficult, and it was on you. You're the talent. You're the thing. You have to make them comfortable, because if you don't, they are not going to shoot you right. They're not going to shoot the light right. They might drop the sound on a side. I mean, seriously, the level of management that you had to do as a Black news anchor or reporter with some of the people you work with was extensive. And I remember I was thinking about Meghan Markle and the show she had on Netflix, and I saw her on the show, like giving out little things to the crew and making sure they ate. And she's always being pilloried for breathing. The fact that she's breathing sets people. And someone on the set said, she's always asking questions and she's so nice. That's great, but fuck that. That's a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? Some days Meghan Markle needs to be able to come to set and be like, shut the fuck up. Or she needs to be able to come to the set and be like, I'm not interested in talking to you. We don't get that, is what I'm saying. Like, and so it's a bit of a straitjacket, because in order to really fully be creative, I have to be able to stretch myself all the way out. And maybe I'm resentful of Anthony Bourdain having the ability to stretch himself all the way out and then get a movie made about him, when I know I couldn't have done one of those things and kept my job. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I'll tell you what, this is obviously not the norm, but so when my first like legit job in finance, I worked at a little bitty place that, no name kind of shop. And then 6 months later, or maybe a year later, I managed to get in the door at this really, a big firm. And one of my uncles like pulled my coat, and, he was like, I know what kind of guy you are. And where what you're getting ready to walk into, you're going to be around a lot of people who have never worked in proximity to somebody Black that's, like on their level. And so you're going to start hearing stuff. People are going to try you. And I was like, oh, Uncle Ray, I listened to him, but I didn't believe him. I thought he was just, he's an old guy. He's just, just, he don't know what he's talking about. I wasn't in that job for a month before somebody almost dropped the N-word in front of me. And people, you could tell that it was really weird, because it's 2 things. One, none of these people thought, considered themselves to be racist, but man, they were doing stuff. And it wasn't just them, even clients that I would talk to, because everything was on the phone back then. You didn't really see the person. And so I was talking to people who were just extremely racist, and they thought they were talking to another or another white person. So they would say stuff that, and I would just, I would have to just, to an extent, I just have to eat it, because I couldn't go off on a client. I couldn't like punch another person, like a colleague, and you just have to just sort of force it down,
But so my question then becomes, what does that do to humanity, right? Like, what does that do to your humanity? And while I love that Black people love to talk about Black excellence, I'm just like totally sick of it at this point. I really am tired of it, because everything we hold up is perfect. Handle it perfectly, do it perfectly. It's Black respectability politics. Do this perfectly, and then you'll be accepted. You're not. You can do it perfectly, and it still doesn't work. And I'm imperfect. I am not perfect. I am not. I cannot do everything perfectly. That is not how humanity works. And yet, that is a trick bag. It's interesting. Dulcie Sloan, if you ever watched the Daily Show with Trevor Noah, I don't know if any of you out there ever watched it. The Black woman on there, Dulcie Sloan, she's very funny. And she would
I know who you're talking about.
Correspondence. So she was on a show recently. I can't remember, on Instagram. She's on like a podcast. And she said the crew, so it comes back to the crew, how the crew, when Jon Stewart transferred the show to Trevor Noah, like Trevor had been a writer. So Trevor wasn't like some random guy. They knew who Trevor was. She said the entire time Trevor was in charge, they still kept their Jon Stewart shirts. They still didn't want to be led by Trevor Noah, even though Trevor Noah was the name on the show. And she talked about that. If I could find it, I would share it on here. I'll look for it while we talk maybe. But it was just like, when I heard her say that, I was like, yeah, I totally understand. And that's the difference between Trevor Noah and Anthony Bourdain, right? So if maybe I'm not a good example because I'm a nobody, even though I was on television, but Trevor Noah couldn't do what Anthony Bourdain did. That's the difference. Trevor Noah had to run this incredibly tightrope for these nobodies to still wear the Jon Stewart show shirt every day when they came. And Dulcie was saying, like, this was not, don't get it twisted. It's not like, oh, they're just doing it. No. It's to keep you in your place, to make it clear what the rules of engagement are here, right? And so this is the burden of being a Black creative. You always are in this space. It's not even a liminal space, because liminal space is neither here nor there. It's a confinement. And what does that do to?
And the thing is, you have to make the adjustment.
Yes.
Trevor Noah is getting paid millions of dollars to to be the face of the Daily Show, and he's having to adjust to these minions that just can't handle it.
Oh yeah, but that's every day. That's what I'm getting at, and no one should yell at people at work, but I should get the chance to make a human mistake and it not be that's the end of me. Do you see what I'm saying? And then I watch other people are able to make a human mistake, not the end of them, right? So that's the distinction. That means I am not living and able to express myself in the same way, in the same human way, because humanity requires failure. And I always hear about this in tech companies. Oh, we go fast, we break things, we fail. No, not you do, not me. I can't go work there and break something and fail. You've been and fired me talking about I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, they're trying to make you pay for it.
Yeah, there's no space,
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it's just, it's like you're saying, just to kind of add on to the story I was telling a second ago. That's what my uncle told me. He said, if somebody does something, somebody, uses a racial epithet, and you react like a lot of guys would, you're going to get fired, and you're going to be, and you're never going to get another chance. Because at the time, I was the only Black person they'd ever hired and all that stuff. And he knew, I guess, what that meant to him, and in a way that maybe I hadn't even thought of. But
the thing of it is, I think that people think it's only about being called a racial slur. It's not. It's the confinement of human existence. It's the confinement of the ability to be tired. It's the like Meghan Markle couldn't come to her set tired. She had to come smiling. She has to come with the gifts. She has to put up with all the bullshit. Like, and there is no room for her to Anthony Bourdain her way through the show. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's the problem. And I think it's easy when people can say, well, yeah, N-word, that's bad. But how many people reflect on the ways in which they themselves also do the same thing to Black people in the workplace? You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to separate out an extreme slur. It's harder to interrogate the ways in which Black people are held to these ridiculously high standards that you can't have a comma out of place. Well, there's research on that. Some people may know this research where they did a legal memo and they put certain errors in the legal memo and they sent it to groups of partners, and they told one partner a Black associate wrote it group, and they told another group of partners a white associate wrote it. The ones who got the legal memo, who were told a Black associate wrote it, found all of the errors plus things that were not errors. Okay. And then the ones who got the exact same memo, same things, who were told a white associate wrote it, did not find all the errors. Do you see what I'm saying? So when I say that we're being held to a higher standard, I'm not making it up. I'm not just talking. There is data that backs that up. And so our baseline of movement is so high. And so when it comes to trying to be creative, when it comes to trying to take chances and risk and do things, that's very stifling, I think.
Yeah. You know, and it also, at least in my case, you know, you end up having this certain level of imposter syndrome too, because
I don't like that phrase.
You know, but I didn't know that, but now
okay,
I know.
Talk about that.
I'm just messing up today, man.
I won't tolerate imposter syndrome in my space now.
So, but I'm saying no.
Because the reason, just a quick aside, the reason I don't like imposter syndrome is because what you're about to describe is a natural result of the stimuli and things that are happening to you that cause a feeling of insecurity. Whereas imposter syndrome implies that there is some sort of faulty thinking in you that is causing you, and it's not. It is not a syndrome. It is not something you can fix. It is a natural response to environmental things that cause you to feel insecure. So I just like to shift the language.
I like that better.
Yeah.
Because that really kind of describes just sort of what I went through. I mean, when I left Wall Street, the whole time I was there, I mean, I had some success, don't get me wrong, but I constantly had to deal with people because of their own perception of Black professionals in finance that just sort of came in the door with the idea that I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And some of them even said it to me, but they didn't even realize how offensive that was. They just thought, well, you guys, y'all don't know how to trade, that kind of thing. So after I left and, some years went by and now I'm in North Carolina, a friend of mine who I had worked with, former colleague, told me I should start a newsletter. This was probably 3 years before I actually did it, because I was like, dude, what am I going to say? Yeah, I just did not see myself as having something that somebody might want to read. And I guess I was wrong. But I had to really work through, some stuff, I guess, to get to a place where I felt confident enough to try.
But that's what it does, though, right? It steals something from you. To, if everything is a Martin Luther King level, damn, who, and first of all, he wasn't even at that level because he was a human being and we still wrestle with that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, this is the crazy thing about it. It's like, there is no space then for humanity. I just keep coming back to that because Black humanity demands the ability to failure. It demands the ability to be imperfect. It demands the ability to be great at something and terrible at something else, just like everybody else. And the fact that is still not possible and that we make these distinctions, we're able to see that in an Anthony Bourdain and not see that in a Trevor Noah, which
Yeah.
everybody, oh, of course, everybody Trevor Noah, but that everybody not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not like that. And the fact that one has to meet a standard that is like way up here and the other did not, that's the thing. That's the hard part, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And yet we persevere.
We persevere. But I want us to think about the ways in which, Black creativity and genius is constrained, and what is the cost of that? You know what I mean? What does that cost
Mm-hmm.
us? And then and like I said, people are very comfortable talking about, oh, it's terrible to say a slur, but how comfortable are people to interrogate the ways in which they can find and restrict Black people? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
On day-to-day things. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Oh, one
the
of the things that I learned when, in this job I was talking about, and I worked at this place for a decade, which is unheard of now. I didn't understand why it took them so long to hire me. It took, it's really, in retrospect, probably not that unusual. But one of the things I found out after, after I'd been there for a few years was that, was that none of the secretarial pool wanted to work for me. And
Mhm,
literally it was like, we just have not been raised to do that, you know? And
mhm,
what ended up happening was the one black um, sales assistant ended up being my, they you know how it is. They have this pool and each one of them covers two or three guys. And so
mhm,
they gave her a raise so that she would be my assistant.
mhm,
And in the 10 years that I worked there, none of those white women who were there when I came in the door ever would, they were nice, but they didn't
right,
know that I knew about them, you know. And
mhm.
it's just one of those things that you're working at a place and you're looking around going, dang, Susie didn't even want to be my sales assistant, and it just, I'd be lying if I said it didn't bother me because I'm
Yeah,
like,
and
damn.
that's why it's not imposter syndrome. And that's why I find imposter syndrome to be offensive. And there's a whole story about that, about where it comes from and
Mm,
blah, blah, blah. But because it undermines the fact that what we're actually talking about is a realistic reaction to profound disrespect
mm,
and profound, consistent emotional harassment, right? Basically. So, the fact that you would feel that way has nothing to do with being an imposter. It has everything to do with being in a hostile environment, And I also wish women would, specifically white women, would move away from this, conversation, because it undermines the fact that the issues impacting women at work are not about them not having confidence. It's about being in a system that is not designed for you and doesn't try to even really design itself for you. And the answer is not self-talk. The answer is multiracial, multicultural coalitions to change where we work. You see what I'm saying? Like
mhm.
that's the answer. So imposter syndrome sends us down the wrong road, in my opinion, of like the answer we're looking for. So
That's an interesting way to look at it that I never really thought of it that way, you know?
it's if you know about the research about how it started, you'd be like, why are we even talking about this? Why is this even a
Mhm.
phrase? It was it was it came about because uh, hold on. It came because there was basically this situation where there was research. It was like 70 maybe white middle class women in the 70s, right? So this is the
Okay.
first generation of white women in the workplace. And the therapists were talking to them about how they felt and about their needs for perfection. And instead of the therapist contextualizing the time, which I think is just totally insane, the therapists then come up with these women have an unrealistic feeling of expectation of perfection, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, no, they don't. It's not unrealistic. They go to a place every day where they are the first of their kind in the professional workplace. They are trying to behave like little men. They are, in fact, do have to be perfect. And so what really frustrated me about the early research is it totally ignored context and put the blame on the women. And so if you really go back to that, you would see what I mean, where you would be like, yeah, this ain't it. You know what I mean? Like, this is not what we think it is, but we think that because there's a business that has popped up around it too. You know what I mean? Everybody's making money.
Oh, okay. Cottage industry.
Okay, here it is. I found this.
Okay.
I want to share this because I was really trying to find this. So can I join something? Can I add something? Yeah.
I think you can. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna share this YouTube. Okay.
There it is.
Okay. So this is a question. The person asked her, what did she learn working at the Daily Show? Like, what's the number one thing she learned from Trevor, from, being in this great environment? What did she learn? So let's hear what she said she learned. Oops, sorry, I turned the sound off.
Who the boss is, no matter who's running.
Okay, hold on. We'll go back.
What was something that you, like some game or something from sitting down with Trevor that you've been able to take that you feel will advance your knowledge about the industry?
I haven't had any industry conversation with Trevor, a personal conversation with Trevor. The main thing I learned from working there is that white people in an office will always be white people in an office. And that does not change. No matter who the boss is, no matter who's running things.
Per my last email.
One of the things I thought was interesting was there were some of the camera guys still wear John's merch after John was gone. John left before his contract was up and he put Trevor there. He handpicked Trevor. Trevor was huge international before coming here.
Right.
So I think he'd already been like on Dancing with the Stars in South Africa. Like, he was huge. And so there was a specific reason that John, because it was to open the audience up more for the show. Because every year we would get new merch, right? And it would be Daily Show with Trevor Noah. And the camera guys would still wear John's merch. Now, mind you, they had this shirt for so long. It said the Ailey Show with On Ewart. Jackets because the man's been gone.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have a job. And that's why I was like, oh, okay. You can't see that this man is the reason that you still have a job.
Did they ever change because the decisions went into making, John choosing him? He's like, Trevor's on here, kill it. And he makes the show his own in a very beautiful way. Did that adjust ever or?
Oh, no, I'm talking to him.
So that's what I'm talking about. And when I heard her do that, talk about that, I was like, oh yeah. I mean, that's why I wrote a book. That's why I wrote a whole book. Cause I'm like, it's exhausting, but lately I've just been thinking about, the impact on creatives on, yes, I can pop the link in. I popped the link in the chat. There you go. It's in there. I just popped the link in the chat. But lately I've been thinking about the impact on creatives because, yeah, sure, there's an impact on all of us, but specifically on creatives, the way that holds you up, you know what I mean? The way that, that way that limits you, that is the part that is hard. And so Trevor, being of good nature and also being outside of this kind of racial system in the United States, he may or may not have noticed it, but we all have to accommodate for it. And that's what I'm saying. Like Anthony Bourdain, he would have told them, take them effing shirts off and get the fuck out. And like nobody would have said
Right.
nothing.
Exactly.
They would have kept working and minded their business. But if Trevor would have said that, oh, he's got an ego, they would have went to the Daily Mail, they would have went to the whoever, on, And so it's the humanity piece that I just been wrestling with, like Jesus in the tomb. You know what I mean? Like I lately have just been, and I think I was just so triggered by this Tony movie that I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So that's where my brain has been. Where's your brain?
No,
I've spent a long time in
That's
this
kind of
conversation.
I'm letting you talk because it's really, I guess I just can identify with it. So, and when you're out here solo too, that's a whole different thing because you have to, you are the company, right? And so there's no, no white face you can put out there to make people comfortable. It's either, and I mean, look, I've done okay with my newsletter. I mean, I wish I got, there's always room for improvement, but I don't think about those kind of things nearly as much. And I think part of it too is I'm too old to care anymore. When you get to a certain age, I know you got a long ways till you get there, but you'll get to a certain age.
At a certain age.
Listen,
You hear me talking.
I used to, one of the reasons that there were certain things I wouldn't write about in the beginning, because in the back of my mind, I was like, what if somebody sees this and might want to hire me? Or, what if somebody, even political stuff. I mean, if you look at the early things that I wrote about, it's almost like I was writing research, just really plain vanilla, not a lot of opinion. And sure enough, the first time that I wrote, and it wasn't even like, over the top. I can't remember what it was. And a guy that I had worked with at the university here in Wilmington was a subscriber. And he wrote this long email just chastising me for talking about race. And, and he wasn't even a paid subscriber. I mean, come on. So yeah, it was, I was stunned because this guy.
Number of people who will talk to a grown adult Black person like they're talking to a child is
listen,
to be studied.
It wasn't that and it wasn't like he used it was, he's going to tell me what I should be writing about. And I was like, I didn't even respond to him because I didn't respond to him. I don't think. I just let him ride, and
But that's a constraint. I guess that's what I'm saying. It constrains you early, and what does it cost of that? There is there's a spiritual economic, there's a spiritual and economic cost, and I guess the economic cost is, to your point, like, is it if I felt freer? Could my newsletter be a bigger newsletter? Am I constrained by the constraints, right? Like, I don't even know. Or, the spiritual cost, like, what does it cost you? A lot of people get bitter and angry, as they get older as a result of that. I was talking to a friend of mine about that this weekend, about people and how some people, get so angry because they didn't have those opportunities, or they are good, like, I don't like Kanye West. I don't even hate to bring up his name. So please do not attribute anything I'm saying, but Kanye West one time screamed something about he was a genius. And people are like, oh, he's crazy. He is crazy. I mean, I shouldn't even, he has mental health issues and he's not a good person and a whole host of other issues. But if he is a genius, can Black genius exist in the same way white genius can? No, it cannot. That's the thing. I guess that's really what it comes down to. And then, since that is true, what is the both economic and spiritual cost of that, right? There's a cost to it, the fact that it can't. So what does it mean? You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just something that is a side quest, I guess, in my head, because is there's nowhere I'm going with this, but it is a side quest. So I don't know. What else are you on? Did you see the Odyssey yet? You were going to see it?
No, I
come on.
I haven't. I bought my tickets. I just haven't been yet. We're supposed to see it next Monday because we had to coordinate around, everybody's schedule, and that'll be sort of like the, I guess cap off the whole summer vacation thing because my youngest son is still in college, so we'll get that done right before we take him back for his junior year. So yay, we're almost there.
I loved the Odyssey because it confirmed to me that people ain't shit. They ain't never been shit, and I'm not sure people are ever gonna be shit. Oh, I'm such a lunatic. But because, the reason I liked it is because it does take us back to these foundational stories that don't just originate in Greek. Aesop's fables are from the continent of Africa, Africa continent. It wasn't like some, Trump wall in the ancient world, right? No, there's all kinds of mixing and movement and stories. But basically, we've been telling each other the same story over and over, which is hubris, money, seeing people as different. You're the problem. You are the people from the sea. And we can't, I don't think we can hear. I don't even know. Like, part of me is like, oh man, this is an interesting epic. And then part of me is like, damn, people don't never listen for thousands of years.
Tell me about it. Listen, I mean, I really love history. And granted, I understand this is a mythological tale, but I grew up reading it. And, you know, like you said, it hits a lot of different themes. So I'm excited. I mean, I kind of know the story, obviously, but I'm excited to see how he puts his spin on it. And what really is funny to me is how folks just think they don't understand how diverse the ancient world was.
Yeah, that's a trippy.
And it really, really, really fucks with them now.
The
It's like-
Renaissance art and white supremacist narrative have combined to convince people that antiquity looked like Alabama. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, it's crazy. Like,
And it was like the opposite, really.
and the continent of Africa is literally right there. And you believe that this entire continent was just hanging around waiting for slavery
With nothing on it, apparently.
They, did with
'cause
nothing.
I mean,
They couldn't even walk.
gigantic continent, and you think all the really good shit happened like in Rome.
And there was no connection. They are literally going on an odyssey on the sea. There are boats. The boats probably might take you someplace, but the narrative is those places were uncivilized, full of idiots, as opposed to, you know, the continent that had the first richest man in the world.
Mhm.
I think somebody's gonna do a movie about him.
Oh, really?
I can't think of the name of the richest, but I'll find it. But somebody's
It's,
gonna do a movie.
it's Mansa Musa or something.
Okay,
I might
yeah,
have it
that's
backwards.
right. Yeah, richest man in antiquity.
Do you
And you know
understand like how rich this guy was?
I
I
do.
mean,
Yeah, you
first
got to
of
read
all-
Mansa Musa. Yep.
he you know, all the drawings and paintings of this guy, he's just covered in gold.
Mhm.
But that wasn't the real source of his wealth, although he had plenty of gold, because Africa's got plenty of gold. This guy, I think it was he was making the Hajj to Mecca, and he controlled the salt market.
Mhm.
That was and at that time, folks got paid in salt. I was reading the other day that's where the word salary comes from.
Oh,
The Romans paid people in salt, and there's like a Latin word for it, and that's sort of the root of the word salary. So yeah, this guy was just basically handing out money and gold and salt all the way on his way to Mecca.
yeah, he was so rich. It says
It
he
disrupted the freaking economy.
crashed the local economy through hyperinflation because his wealth was so. We are to believe that this man is and that a continent that creates it has no interaction with Rome and no interaction with Greece, and that Greece and Rome only think they're slaves because the movies from Hollywood put the black people as slaves, and because the Renaissance artists reimagined antiquity as white. Because of that, we are just wiped out of the story. You know? Yeah, it's a crazy.
You got to give him credit. I mean, how in the world do you pull it off? That's the thing that gets me when I think about just how whitewashed. I understand, you know, people who win wars get to write the history, but dang, you know, that's a lot. That's a lot of rewriting.
Yeah,
But,
I mean,
you know, now we don't really have an excuse now, because we got social media, we got internet, we got access to knowledge, and it confounds me.
but the
how
knowledge we have
resistant.
is super confusing, right? Because then you'll have people on there saying that none of it is true, that we didn't exist, that we were so stupid, and we don't, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the internet is kind of a double-edged sword because it can enforce lies or confusion. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody
so-
in the chat, you know, just pointed out it's the same way that white supremacists have reportrayed white Jesus. And again, it's so funny to me, the things that people will just sort of believe. I mean, you got this guy that's in the Middle East, and he's looking like freaking Peter O'Toole or just some blue-eyed white guy running around. I mean, he would be such an anomaly.
But so much work went into that retelling that it's almost impossible to unretell it. And I would mention Aesop and Aesop's fables. Anytime it's a question of whether somebody was African in the ancient world, it's up for debate. It's always up for debate. The continent, the connection cannot be. So anyway, he was a Greek storyteller, but he, according to many sources, was of African descent. And
Sure.
Again, we are putting on antiquity something they didn't have, because the Roman Empire was the Roman Empire.
Right.
Greek Empire was the Greek Empire. So that might have included lands they conquered. So anyway.
Absolutely.
So Aesop comes before Pliny the Elder, who's a total idiot. Like Pliny the Elder, people talk about him, his predictions and stuff, the Roman author, he didn't understand nothing and wrote books about nonsense. And Aesop's fables are fables that are going to show up in Christianity, right? That's how important they are. And that is part of Greek culture. And that is a person from the continent of Africa up for debate. You know what I mean? So that's the problem, so it's really hard to get people to connect the dots, because people have been erasing the dots the whole time,
For a long time.
Yeah. It's difficult to connect dots. And here I come, they're like, well, who are you? What do you know? Why should I believe you? Why I just believe Peter Thiel and all those lunatics who say, Western culture is the only culture that's ever contributed anything. That's what they believe, because that's what it said, right?
I saw a clip from an interesting interview. And, I don't know what folks think about Hunter Biden. I don't really have an opinion on, because he's just out there now on social media, and he's, doing podcasts and doing all this stuff. I think it's great to the extent that he's kind of bounced back, because he was pretty vilified, over the last couple of years. But anyway, he was on a podcast with this white supremacist guy that Trump had dinner with the guy. He's actually got like Hispanic last name. And I can't think of it.
It's Nick Fuentes.
Yes, Nick Fuentes. Thank you. I try not to know these guys, but yeah, it's him. And so he really just kind of told this guy, because Fuentes just spits out a lot of things and nobody really ever challenges him.
And he's a kid too. I mean, he's a young man. He doesn't even know. I'm not dismissing him as a child. I'm saying
no. He just clearly doesn't know a lot about history.
But he knows hatred and he knows what's wrong. But he doesn't even have the life context to know what the F he's supposed to be. I mean, anyway, sorry.
So Hunter was just kind of taking him to school on how flawed his little theories about, just about Black people in general. And at some point he asked him, he said, have you ever read The Three Musketeers? Do you like, I think maybe he said The Count of Monte Cristo. And and he starts kind of going into this thing about, Western classic, blah, blah. He said, it's written by a Black man. And you could see for a second, the gears just start kind of freezing up, because I don't think he knew that. And his response was, well, he had the benefit of Western culture. That's why he was able to do this. Okay. And, it's just,
I mean, but that's the thing about
contextualizing.
That's the thing about saying Aesop may have been African. This is what people do. It's like, I've even heard people say that Hannibal, who conquered the known world, wasn't Black. The coins that have Hannibal's face are maybe incorrect. Hannibal looked like my nephew Andrew, but apparently we cannot give ourselves over to the idea that and when Africans conquered elements of the world, they brought math, science, language with them, and then these folks took it on and used it, and then the story became they created it. Right. So this is, and it's not to say Greece and Rome aren't creative. It's to say the idea that they are the only place of creativity and Western culture is to steal the story away from other, you know what I mean? So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's everything. Anytime it's up for debate, it's debatable. When when it's a question of whether we're a participant, it's debatable. Whether it's debatable, but it's not debatable. But everything else is
Oh,
debatable.
Sherry, you're just starting trouble.
But okay, so now I'm really gonna start trouble because now I'm about to complain about Black folks. So I love this show, Interview with the Vampire, which
Oh, yeah, right.
my goal is to make more people who will watch the show. And if you remember Anne Rice, I was a big fan of her books, the movie with Tom Cruise. He did a fabulous job in the movie. But now AMC, also available on Netflix, season 1 and 2, have the Interview with the Vampire, and then The Vampire Lestat season 3 just came out. And there are some Black people on the internet who got their Odyssey on. They became
What?
Odyssey folk. Yes, child.
Wow.
So in the casting, they made Louis in the casting of the AMC show Black Creole Man in New
Oh,
Orleans.
yeah, right.
They did such a great job capturing time and place. The actor is British, but I've heard Black folks from New Orleans.
That's Grey Worm in
Jacob Anderson,
Game of Thrones, right?
Yep. And I've heard Black people from New Orleans say that he has done one of the most authentic Black Creole accents they've ever heard on television. Because when you think about it, we hear white Cajun accents on TV. We rarely hear Black Creole. So people were really excited. Season 1 and 2, he was the lead because he's the vampire being interviewed. He's an unreliable narrator. And in season 3, it shifts to the vampire Lestat, who is white. So they're, vampires in love, whatever, but they have the best chemistry on television, I swear to God. But anyway, so Black people started being Odyssey people. They started complaining, oh, it's anti-Black show because of the trial and the way Lestat treated Louis. Okay, whoa. This is a fantasy show. This is not
It's
real.
from a book.
Vampire is from a book. Yes, they have adapted things on the book, but at the end of the day, none of these are good people. They kill people. They're all apex predator type figures in the show. And then it was a game of telephone about the Black writers. Oh, all the Black writers on the show were fired. And I'm like, wow, I want to know about this, right? So I come on Substack, and there is a Black writer on Substack, the only one I could find who was on the show. He wrote that he did do, I think, seasons 2, and there were Black writers in seasons 1, because it's the Black particular. This is a casting choice, but it doesn't change Anne Rice's basic material, right? So for season 3, the writer's strike had happened. I think we all forget about that in the time it took for season 3 to come out. They had a smaller budget, and his contract ended, and he said he was ghosted. Like, basically, sometimes people do that in Hollywood. Your contract is up. They just don't call you again. It feels terrible. It was horrible. But at no point did he say they got rid of all the Black writers to get rid of Black writers. And he did say that when you shift character point of view, so for instance, they're going to
need a whole different
you shift,
I guess.
Okay, so in season 4 that they just announced is going to be Queen of the Dam with Sheila Atim, who's a wonderful Black British actress. They just changed the showrunner. The showrunner is now but you could not have a reasonable conversation with these people on the internet because they had this whole thing decided about the show, about the characters, how bad Louis treated. They're vampires. They're fictional. They're bad people. Even Claudia, the little girl vampire, she's got like a diary where she talks about how she murdered people and they beg for their lives. Like, they're bad. And so I guess I say that to say that we can all fall into the trap of poor intellectual hygiene. And so, and we just, and like, me, like, if you tell me all this happened with the writers, I'm gonna go do some research because I want to know the primary source. Because we all, as humans, tend to do a game of telephone a little bit. Like, oh, I heard this, and then by the time we get here, it's totally crazy. So that's my pitch about that, because it really frustrated me, and it made it seem like it was very Odyssey-like, right?
Yeah.
It was a different kind of cut on it, but it was kind of like, now the Odyssey critique is wrong, right? So some of what you talk about is on the Odyssey level, right?
So
But
there's another conversation that's similar to this, and I would be interested to know what you think about it. I guess it was over the weekend they announced Black Panther 3.
oh yeah. That's
You know where I'm going. And
Yes, go
so
ahead.
the person who is playing, I guess the way that they're, taking the plot, it's the grown son of T'Challa, who's dead, and it's being played by David Johnson. And for folks who don't know him, he's been in a few things. I know him from a show that I love called Industry that's on HBO, and it's about it's about not Wall Street so much, but just investment banking and so on. Anyway, this guy's obviously British, and so and I don't even know necessarily how I feel about this, because you just wonder, were there no like American Black folks who could have played this role? I don't know enough to know why they chose that guy, but I think about Selma and some of the things that the actor who played Selma has said.
That's the problem.
And I just don't know how a Black person not from America, there's certain roles like Martin Luther King. There is an experience that we have that is unique to American Black folks that a British person who's had, freedoms much longer than we have had, in their culture. It's just not, I don't know if it transfers. That's all.
It's a different cultural thing. And that is a critique some people have had about Interview, because Jacob Anderson, who I adore, is a British actor, but his Creole accent is on point. And Delaney Hales is British. And there are a couple of phrases and things they use this season where Black Americans are like, well, if a Black American actress had heard that language, they might have asked more questions, or, so there is this thing. And I think the problem really stems from David Oleo. Is that how you say it?
I never know how to say his name.
Oleo. Maybe it's Oleo. David Oleo, who played MLK. And he walked into a mess.
Yes, he did.
Not understanding Black vernacular, African-American vernacular and its origin. And he was in an interview where he basically implied it was subservience slowed down, a Nigerian accent slowed down by subservience. That was the title. That was the sentence, sorry. And the problem with that is it's ignorant, right? Because the African-American vernacular is a mixture of a variety of African dialects, not just Nigerian, and Scottish and Irish and Old English. And it is not a subservience. There's the same way Southerners slow their talk. And there are real linguistic roots to our language, to our vernacular. And so it was stunning to people that somebody who played MLK would say something so ignorant. It was very hurtful. And so I think Black people, Black Americans feel kind of stung by that. And like, well, I don't even know if but in truth of fact, Black Panther probably is African. I mean,
he's probably physically closer to Wakanda.
Yeah. So there's that. And I think that's the pain point. I think the pain point ends up being feeling like that Black British folks, Black African folks, and this is again, white supremacy and colonialism has done to us, see us as less than, do not hold us in the same regard, nor do they understand our story fully. They slightly may believe that we've also just been lazy and then they get here and everything, they're working hard and they don't, so there's that. The other piece of it, because I am a journalist and I'm interested in things, is that British actors, period, get more and better training than American actors. And the reason that is because the British educational system emphasizes different things. And so there are more ways for British actors, Black and white, to get, quote,
well, they get classical training and stuff too that we don't really get.
They get theater training. They have the Royal Academy of Training. They have very different levels of training and access. Ours is catch as catch can, you know, so
Yeah.
it may develop a different type of actor because if we're keeping it 100, it's a lot of white British actors and also in
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think
half the
American
folks-
actors, period, black or white, are like, hey, wait a minute, we can act, you know. So it is complicated, right? It's complicated, and I think it was really complicated by what David Aleo.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, but you know, on the flip side, one of my favorite characters in The Wire. I'm rewatching The Wire for probably the third time, and Idris Elba, and dude is like hood. And the funniest story is that I saw an interview with him, and he was being asked, you know, how he got that part, and I guess, you know, he got a call back, and then maybe the third time, one of the people said, "Man, where you from?" Because he had been trying to conceal that, you know, because
he didn't want people to know he was
did
really
some work.
really.
And you know, he acknowledged where he was from. Apparently, they had money on it, like among themselves. Like, is that guy really American or is he something else? And they told him, "Don't tell anybody."
Yeah.
So the characters who were acting with him had no idea that he was not African American.
Well,
And
guess who else is not African American? Most people are shocked. Delroy Lindo from Sinners. Delroy Lindo, longtime black actor, been in the United States for many,
where's he from? Is he Caribbean?
Britain.
Really?
You know, Britain by way of Caribbean. I mean, Britain has.
I did not know that.
In Britain in the fall, there's Afro Caribbeans in Britain. There are African continent people in Britain, right? So there's Nigerians. Yeah. So there's a bit of a separation even there between the Caribbean folks and the African folks, and then the African folks are organized by their place.
There's another guy that you talk about white folks in the Wire. The first time I saw it, I was stunned because I was probably one of the last people to watch The Wire. I watched The Wire like since I've been living in North Carolina. And the guy who plays Littlefinger in Game of Thrones is playing a politician from Baltimore. And dude, he pulls it off, you know. So I mean, it's a complicated kind of
thing. I think it's a complicated thing, and I think it was just fresh off the David Aleo thing, and there's some hurt there, and then and I think all actors, black or white in the United States, are like, we can act, so can we get, you know, a role? And I think there's that. But, you know, at the end of the day, I wish the young man great success, you know, in Black Panther. And, you know, I don't really hold any, you know,
I'm going to go see it. Don't get it twisted.
But it is it's an emotional thing, I think. And it's tied up in those comments that there's always a sneaking suspicion under us that you don't respect us. And I noticed Jacob Anderson from Interview with the Vampire, he is very careful about, for instance, he was talking about going to New Orleans because the first season is in New Orleans. And he said, I was in a cab driver told me stay away from voodoo. And he said, I don't mess with voodoo. He said, but I respect voodoo. He said, because I have respect for that. It's not, you know, I noticed he's very careful in how he talks about, because you are a visitor in this culture, even though you have the skin, you're still a visitor in a separate culture. Right. And so, and I appreciate that he does that, you know, because it's just a little bit of a respect. And I think it's a respect issue, but Wakanda is somewhere not here. So literally anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an Odyssey thing when you really think about it. You know,
it's back to the interview. These are fictitious people.
None of this is real, y'all.
None of this is real. None of it.
Well, Terry, it's that time. Boy, we buzzed through this one. I really enjoyed this. We got to do this more often where we talk about, you know, things outside of the political arena that are just as
Donald Trump has just wore me out, Marlon. So I just didn't have a thought to spare for him today.
Hey, listen, we're better for it.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Be sure to follow The Journeyman and Qualified at the Intersection. You know, tell your tell your friends, convert, make more, convert people to us. You know, as I always say at the end here, there are a lot of people on this platform. A lot of people have bigger platforms than us. And you know, people have to make decisions about what kind of voices do you want to hear, and it requires effort, you know, to support. So
Absolutely. And by the way, you should follow us both or subscribe to both our channels on YouTube. We're easy to find. So
yeah, see, I don't even know I got one, but I do. Yeah.
Even though she doesn't check hers that often, but subscribe anyway.
Yes.
We will see you next time. Take care.
All right. Thank y'all. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thanks, Marlon. Bye-bye.
Bye.